Welcome back to Champions and Beyond. In this video, we are going to do our playthrough guide of Marvel Champions. For this, we are going to use the Peter Parker Spider-Man hero with his pre-constructed Justice deck. This is the deck that comes pre-built when you buy a core set of Marvel Champions, and it is one of the recommended decks that you use to learn the game. And up against him, we're going to go up against Rhino. And Rhino is in his form that comes pre-built again in the core set. This is designed to be the intro scenario into Marvel Champions. So we are going to get set up and then we'll be back. Okay, so for this game, we are just playing on standard difficulty. Rhino stage 1 comes in with 14 hit points and his main scheme, the break-in. Now I'll throw up some images of side 1A of the break-in, which shows what the deck construction should be, and that is the recommended deck construction is what we've used for this game. We then flip it over to side 1B. There is no additional effects. As you can see in the top corner, the game will end when Rhino reaches 7 threat per player. We are playing this as a solo game, so if that hits 7 threat, we've lost. Looking at the bottom of the card, you can see there is a 0, and that indicates the starting threat, so there is no threat on his main scheme when we start the game. And it goes up by 1 per player every villain phase. So again, 1 threat every time we go into a villain phase. We have set aside our Nemesis set in case that ends up coming out and being involved in the game. Peter Parker's Nemesis is the Vulture, and our deck has been shuffled, ready to start the game. So, Peter Parker, you always start in your alter ego form when you start a game. Peter Parker has hit points of 10 and a hand size of 6 in alter ego. What we will do is there's no additional setup for the villains. We can go into drawing our opening hand and deciding whether or not we want to do an initial mulligan. So we have a swinging web kick. We have the strength resource card. We have webbed up. We have Mockingbird. We have a backflip. And we have great responsibility. Now, looking at this opening hand, there's a couple of different ways we could go. Webbed up and Mockingbird both will help to stun Rhino, which will prevent him from attacking. So I think we will get rid of a webbed up, as Mockingbird may be a more reliable choice. Great responsibility triggers when any threat is about to be placed. We're not going to place any threat until the beginning of the villain phase, so really that's a bit of a dead card in our hand. And backflip triggers on a villain attacking, and especially if we're going to stun Rhino, it's probably not going to be a useful card for this opening hand. Strength is a double resource. You're only allowed 1 of each of the 3 double resources in your deck. So if we pass upon that now, we're not going to get the bonus. Mockingbird is a unique ally, so we won't have another copy of that in our deck. And maybe that'll be a smart play to begin with. swinging web kick. We have 3 copies, but it is Spider-Man's big damage event. So I think we'll hold on to that. So we are going to mulligan 3 of our opening 6 cards. And we are going to replace them with 4 Justice, Nick Fury, and a Web Shooter. So, as we said about stunning, this has already possibly changed. Nick Fury is another unique ally, and the fact that he came in the core set, he has been such a staple for so many deck builds over the years. Nick Fury has an enter play ability, so when we play him, he can either deal 4 damage to the villain, remove 2 threat from a scheme, or draw us 3 cards. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to use Peter Parker in his alter ego form. Has a scientist ability, so he generates a mental resource while he is on this side. So we have 1 resource, we have 2 from strength, and 4 justice again can only be triggered if there is threat on the board. There currently isn't any, so we are going to spend that as the 4th resource. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to play Nick Fury. What we're going to do with Nick Fury is we're going to draw 3 cards. We get Interrogation Room, we get Emergency, and we get our other copy of Interrogation Room. We have no other abilities in Alter Ego, so we are going to flip up to Peter Parker, to Spider-Man. Now, we've got a couple of different options. Web shooters are a really good card to have. They generate resources slowly over several rounds. Emergency again triggers off of threat being placed. There is no threat currently being placed, so that is going to be used as a resource. Our 2 copies of Interrogation Room trigger off of us defeating minions. So potentially there might not be a lot of minions that come out in this game. I think they can be used as resources as well. Leaves us with 2 3-cost cards. We could either put Mockingbird out and continue to stun, or we could start going to face with swing and web kick. So I think what we're going to do is we're actually going to spend Mockingbird to play the web shooter. That's going to come in with 3 counters. It is a hero resource, so we have to be Peter Parker to use that resource. We're then going to spend these 3 cards to do a swinging web kick, which is going to deal 8 damage to Rhino, bringing him down to 6. Nick Fury is going to attack for 2 and take a consequential damage. And Spider-Man is going to attack for 2, bringing Rhino's first stage all the way down to 2 life. We'll discard those. And our hand is now empty. We've exhausted everything we need to. The resources can be saved for a later turn. So at the end of the player phase, we are going to ready up every card that has been exhausted. We are going to draw up our new hand ready for next turn. Peter Parker has a hand size of 5. So we get Daredevil, Great Responsibility, another web shooter, a surveillance team, and Black Cat. So that is our hand ready for next turn. I will mention as well, Nick Fury has an ability on him where he will leave play at the end of the round. So after Rhino activates and does everything that he's about to do that I'll show you, Nick Fury will go, and that will influence a decision that we make, but I will run through that with you. The first thing we do for the villain phase is we're going to add a single threat on. That is obviously indicated by the number that I pointed out at the beginning of the game. Rhino is going to look across to us. He's going to see who is sitting across the table from him, who is across the battlefield, and he sees Spider-Man. Rhino will then try and attack because we are in hero form. So as Rhino attacks, that will trigger our response. We have a response that says whenever a villain initiates an attack against Spider-Man, we get to draw a card. So we get an energy into our hand. What we are then going to do, we get a chance to declare defenders. Spider-Man has a 3 defense, but as I mentioned before, Nick Fury is going to disappear regardless of what happens. So what we are going to do is we are going to exhaust Nick Fury and declare him as the defender. So Rhino is going to attack us for his base value of 2 plus a boost card, which is another 2 boost icons as shown in the bottom corner of the card. So he would deal 4 damage. Nick Fury has 3 health. The attack didn't have overkill or anything, so all 4 damage goes on to Nick Fury, and he's going to enter our discard pile. We then get an encounter card. So our encounter card for this phase is Sandman. Sandman comes in with a tough status card, as shown by his toughness ability, which means that the first time that any damage is dealt to Sandman, it will just be cancelled off by that tough status card. Overall, that's not a terrible villain phase. We're still ready, and we can go back into the player phase. So we now have a hand size of 6. And I think what we're going to start off with, we're going to spend our energy to play Black Cat. A Black Cat is pretty unique amongst allies. She is one of only a handful that take no consequential damage for attacking. So the longer she stays out on the table, she can just ping a single damage every turn. What we do get to do with Black Cat is we get to do her ability, which we discard the top 2 cards of our deck, and any card that has the mental resource printed on it, we get to add to our hand. So Jessica Jones has an energy, and Spider Tracer also has an energy, so we didn't get too lucky that turn. Black Cat is going to attack and just knock off the tough off of Sandman. Peter Parker is going to deal 2 damage and knock out the first stage of Rhino. Now, Rhino stage 2, when he comes in, he wants us to go and look for the break-in side scheme. Not the break-in side scheme, sorry, the breaking and taking side scheme, which will come into play. There it is. We then shuffle the encounter deck because we have searched through it for something. So that is shuffled. The breaking and taking has a hazard icon. It comes in with 2 threat, and then it has an ability where it adds 1 threat per player. So it comes in with 3 threat total. Now, we could have great responsibility to cancel the single threat from going on there. But if we do that, we're not going to have enough resources to do probably the play that we are going to do. So we are going to use our web shooter, removing a single counter, and we're going to spend surveillance team, the other web shooter, and great responsibility for 4 total resources to bring in Daredevil. Now, Daredevil has an ability. When he thwarts, he can also deal a damage to an enemy. I have just realised. Rhino comes back in with 15 health. So we've done his when revealed, we've reset his hit points, we've revealed everything. He's back in with 15. His attack also now goes up to a 3 base attack. So he's a little bit more dangerous. But Daredevil is going to thwart for 2. Removing all but a single threat from breaking and taking. And now we have an empty hand of cards. We have everything exhausted. His response will trigger, and we are going to deal a single damage to Rhino. Ready up at the end of the player phase. And we draw back up to our hand size. So we have Aunt May, we have a Genius, we have a Spider Tracer, we have Haymaker, and we have another swinging web kick. So we go into the villain's second phase. Rhino is again going to add a single threat onto the main scheme. So it's up to 2 out of 7. Rhino is going to look across the table. One thing I did just notice, Daredevil should have taken a consequential damage for thwarting last turn. Although Black Cat doesn't, other allies do. Anyway, Rhino is going to look across the table and go to attack Spider-Man. Spider-Man will use his Spider Sensibility and draw a card. We're going to get Tenacity. So Rhino is going to attack us this turn. We're not going to defend it. I think we're going to let Rhino hit us. We're still at full health. And why not? Spider-Man could take a little bit of punishment. So he's going to attack us for 3. And no boost icon on that one. So he's going to knock us down to 7. Sandman is then going to attack us. He also attacks for 3. Knocking us down to 4.